Alex is 31 and works in logistics, moving freight with steady hands while his life grows heavier around him. He shares an apartment with Fiona, whose laughter once felt warm but now echoes with the weight of unspoken arguments. Her friends Becca and Tess come and go as they please, treating his home like a stage set for their endless chaos. Every morning Alex wakes early, hoping the day will be quiet, only to find new signs of their careless intrusions. He tries to speak calmly, but each attempt ends with Fiona defending them and accusing him of drawing invisible borders. A year passes, and resentment expands like pressure in a sealed crate, ready to burst with the slightest impact. Becca starts entering the apartment without knocking, moving through rooms as if walls owe her a familiar welcome. She grabs Alex's coffee beans, his expensive ones, grinding them loudly while humming off-key in the early morning light. Tess follows her pattern, drifting around the kitchen with careless fingertips that leave smudges on every polished surface. Alex returns from work one evening and finds both women trying on Fiona's dresses and tossing accessories across the sofa. He steps quietly into the room, hopping to claim a moment of peace, but Becca waves him off like background noise. He asks them to put things back, using a calm tone that hides a knot of frustration tightening in his chest. Becca laughs and tells him to relax, insisting that the apartment is a shared space because they are basically family. Tess nods along, adding that boundaries feel outdated when everyone loves each other and has nothing to hide. Alex breathes slowly, counting his words before they escape, knowing anything sharp will be thrown back at him. He explains again that some items are personal and not meant to be used without permission, no matter who visits. Fiona enters midway and immediately sides with her friends, claiming Alex exaggerates every small inconvenience into a crisis. She accuses him of policing her relationships and trying to isolate her from the people who have always supported her. Alex listens in silence, feeling the familiar sting of being painted as controlling when he is simply asking for respect. The next week the pattern repeats, only louder and more disruptive, as if Becca and Tess enjoy testing his patience. They open his fridge without asking and finish the craft drinks he saves for his rare nights of quiet celebration. They borrow his headphones, leave them tangled on the counter, and dismiss his frustration as needless tension in the house. One afternoon, Alex finds Becca lounging on his side of the bed, scrolling through her phone while crumbs scatter nearby. He keeps his voice steady as he asks her to move, but she stretches slowly and mocks his obsession with order. Tess laughs from the doorway, joking that living with him must feel like living under a silent but strict landlord. Alex tells Fiona about it later, hoping she will finally understand the pressure building under all these moments. But Fiona shakes her head and says he is overreacting, claiming her friends only want comfort, not control or conflict. She insists that his boundaries feel like walls, erected to keep her world from blending naturally with his. Alex goes to bed late that night, staring at the ceiling while noise from the living room seeps under the door. He realizes the issue is no longer about borrowed items or disrupted routines, but about a steady erosion of respect. The apartment no longer feels like his home, but a territory contested by intruders he never invited into his life. Each small incident adds weight to the invisible scale inside him, tipping slowly toward a breaking point he can sense coming. Alex comes home early on a Thursday, hopping for a quiet hour before dinner, but the apartment feels unsettled. He hears whispers from the bedroom, the kind of hurried voices that signal trouble moving in the wrong direction. He steps inside and freezes when he sees Fiona, Becca, and Tess bent over his private dresser drawers. They rummage through folded shirts, sealed envelopes, and small items he has never shared with anyone. Becca lifts an old watch he keeps for sentimental reasons, turning it in her palm as if shopping for a souvenir. Tess sorts through his notebooks, ignoring the clear discomfort on his face as she flips through personal pages. Alex asks what they are doing, but his voice cracks with disbelief before anger even has time to form. Fiona looks up and insists they were simply organizing things because the room felt cluttered and unwelcoming. Alex points to the drawers and demands to know why they touched his locked compartment without permission. Becca shrugs and says locked drawers only make people curious, especially in a shared living environment. Tess adds that secrets create distance and that they were just trying to help him open up a little more. The room grows heavy as Alex tells them firmly that this is a violation, not a misunderstanding or a joke. Fiona crosses her arms and claims he is blowing everything out of proportion just to push her friends away again. She insists the apartment belongs to both of them and that her friends should feel comfortable entering any space. Alex feels something break inside, a clean fracture formed by too many cracks ignored for too long. He reminds Fiona that respect is not optional and that privacy is not a negotiation but a basic necessity. Fiona's expression hardens as she accuses him of controlling behavior and emotional rigidity that stifles her life. Becca steps forward and tells Alex that anyone who loves Fiona should accept the people she loves without limits. Tess nods and mutters that relationships fail when partners create imaginary lines between mine and ours. Alex exhales slowly, feeling heat rise in his chest as he tries to steady himself against the disrespect circling him. He tells them all to leave the room, but Fiona refuses and demands a solution that prioritizes her comfort. Then she delivers an ultimatum that slices cleanly through the chaos and leaves the air cold around them. She says either Alex gives her friends full access to the apartment, including their own keys, or she will move out. Alex stands still as the ultimatum repeats itself in his mind, sharper each time it lands against his thoughts. He realizes in that moment that the love he once carried for Fiona has thinned to a quiet, exhausted thread. He looks at her, then at the two women who have treated his home like an open playground for a year. The decision forms quickly, not emotional but precise, the way he builds routes and schedules at work. He nods slowly, agreeing to give them keys, but something shifts in his eyes that no one notices. Inside him, a switch flips, turning frustration into strategy and hurt into a clean, logistical plan. He decides he will not argue anymore, and he will not plead for respect that was never freely offered. He will solve this the way he solves impossible shipments, efficiently, quietly, and with absolute finality. Alex calls Becca and Tess the next morning and tells them he has agreed to give them keys. He speaks in a calm, measured tone, hiding the storm of calculation in his mind. He suggests they take a short trip, just 3 days, to celebrate their new access and freedom. Becca claps her hands and Tess nods eagerly, both unaware of the precise plan forming behind Alex's words. He spends the day arranging logistics quietly, as if preparing for a high-stakes shipment at work. He rents a van large enough to move all of Fiona's belongings in one go, checking every dimension twice. He books a storage unit nearby, secure and private, accessible only with a key he controls entirely. He prints out new locks and replacement keys, labeling one key for the storage, not the apartment. The real apartment key remains hidden, tucked safely into a small safe Alex owns from his own collection. He packs moving boxes and labels them with care, ensuring fragile and important items are separated clearly. Fiona's kitchenware, clothing, electronics, and small sentimental items all go into color-coded containers. He calculates timing to the minute, coordinating the van rental to pick up just after Becca and Tess leave. Alex pretends to relax in the apartment, acting as if he is waiting for them to return for a casual evening. Becca and Tess thank him for the keys and leave with excitement, chatting about where they might go first. Alex watches them walk down the street, counting the exact minutes until the door clicks shut behind them. He moves quickly, unlocking the storage unit, carrying boxes in methodical, practiced movements. Every box is checked against a list, making sure nothing is left behind that could disrupt his plan. He installs the new lock on the apartment door, testing it multiple times to ensure Fiona cannot enter. He slips the storage key into a small envelope addressed to Becca, labeling it ambiguously as the new key. Alex smiles faintly, knowing the illusion is complete. She will believe her friends have free access. He organizes the apartment one last time, removing signs of recent packing and making everything appear untouched. The van is loaded perfectly, balancing weight and accessibility to speed the final move when Fiona returns. He double-checks the list, confirming each item is accounted for, then secures the storage unit with a final click. Alex sets the envelope in a conspicuous spot where Becca will find it, ensuring the deception will unfold naturally. He leaves the apartment for a short walk, giving the illusion of casual normalcy in case Fiona returns early. In his mind, he runs through every possible scenario, anticipating questions, protests, and objections. He knows the plan is airtight because it mirrors the precision he applies to his work every day. By the time Becca and Tess return, Alex has already moved everything to the storage unit quietly and efficiently. The key they receive will mislead them, but it fulfills Fiona's demand in a literal, logical sense. Alex feels a calm satisfaction, the kind that comes from solving a problem with exacting strategy rather than emotion. He sits back in the apartment, waiting, ready to see how the final pieces fall into place without interference. Everything is set for the next stage, and Alex finally allows himself to breathe, knowing control has returned. Fiona returns to the apartment later that afternoon, expecting to find her friends waiting with smiles. She tries the key Becca left on the counter, twisting it in the lock, only to find it does not fit. Her eyes widen, panic flickering briefly, before she rushes to the living room calling for Becca and Tess. Becca answers her phone and laughs, thinking Fiona is joking, unaware she holds the key to the storage unit. Tess mutters something about checking the mailbox, but is distracted, missing Fiona's rising frustration entirely. Fiona storms through the apartment, rattling drawers and doors, demanding to know what Alex has done. Alex appears from the bedroom calmly, watching her movements, letting her realize the truth on her own. He explains that he has honored her request literally. Her friends have keys, just not to the apartment. Fiona freezes, disbelief overtaking her anger for a fleeting moment as the reality sinks in. She questions him rapidly, accusing him of betrayal, manipulation, and intentional cruelty. Alex listens without interruption, maintaining a steady tone, as if reporting logistics details at work. He points out that he simply ensured her friends had access, while preserving boundaries she never defended. Fiona's voice shakes as she calls Becca, but Becca still thinks she is joking and does not check her key carefully. Tess is equally confused, her casual amusement dissolving slowly into uncertainty and irritation. Fiona turns back to Alex, tears forming, demanding explanations, blaming him for sabotaging her plan. Alex repeats calmly that he followed her instructions literally. That responsibility lies where she assigned it. The apartment feels smaller, air thick with tension, as Fiona realizes her friends cannot help her now. Her mother, Arlene, arrives, drawn by Fiona's frantic texts, and immediately begins scolding Alex for the situation. Alex stays composed, letting Arlene's frustration hang in the air without engaging, unmoved by the pressure. Fiona pleads with him, explaining that her belongings are trapped, her friends are useless, and she feels betrayed. Alex explains again that this was the consequence of giving access without enforcing accountability. He offers no apology for the outcome, only the facts, as if the chaos is simply a logistical report. Fiona paces, realizing the depth of her miscalculation in trusting her friends to act responsibly. Arlene sighs, stepping back, frustrated but powerless to intervene, her attempts to mediate futile. Fiona checks her phone repeatedly, messages unanswered, as the illusion of ride-or-die loyalty crumbles. She begins to comprehend the total failure of her social support network, panic rising with each passing minute. Alex watches quietly, noticing the shift, knowing she finally understands the stakes of her own choices. He sits calmly, reviewing mental notes of the next steps, confident the plan will continue without disruption. Fiona's sobs echo in the apartment, directed at both him and the friends who abandoned her. Arlene mutters under her breath about bad decisions and misplaced trust, but Alex remains a neutral observer. By the end of the afternoon, Fiona is exhausted, defeated, and begins to grasp the full weight of her isolation. Alex does not gloat. He simply prepares for the next phase, knowing the consequences will teach lessons Fiona ignored. The key to the storage unit sits innocently on the counter, the center of a silent, unyielding trap she cannot escape. Fiona's trust in her friends is shattered, and she finally sees that her insistence on defending them over him was her undoing. 2 weeks pass quietly before Fiona arrives at the storage unit with Becca and Tess in tow. She carries hope that her friends will help her retrieve the boxes, expecting cooperation and loyalty. Alex meets them at the gate, calm, professional, and ready to oversee the operation without chaos. He tells Fiona she may enter the storage alone, that he will supervise, but only one person at a time. Fiona's eyes widen, panic flickering, as she realizes she cannot rely on her friends for support. Becca and Tess glance at each other nervously, unease creeping in as Alex's tone leaves no room for argument. Alex unlocks the first section and gestures for Fiona to begin moving boxes toward the van parked outside. She struggles with the weight, pulling and lifting, realizing the physical effort she ignored in her planning. Becca tries to step in, but Alex stops her, insisting the responsibility was hers alone to manage. Tess mutters excuses about an urgent call and retreats to the corner, watching rather than helping. Fiona grits her teeth, hauling boxes one after another, sweat forming on her forehead as frustration builds. Alex observes quietly, noting each misstep and inefficient movement, as if evaluating a poorly managed shipment. Becca finally claims a family emergency, leaving Fiona further isolated in the task at hand. Tess soon follows, muttering something about traffic and errands, leaving Fiona entirely alone. Alex does not intervene, maintaining the illusion of fairness while letting natural consequences unfold. Fiona begins to cry softly, the exhaustion and betrayal washing over her in waves she cannot stop. Every box moved highlights the absence of loyalty she once assumed was unbreakable. Alex remains composed, guiding her only when absolutely necessary to avoid damage to fragile items. Fiona's shouts grow louder as she tries to summon help, but the storage is empty, echoing only her own voice. Alex gestures to a final pile of boxes and steps back, leaving Fiona to face the full weight of her decisions. The van waits loaded in sequence, but she must bring each container forward one by one under his watchful eye. She stumbles with the heaviest boxes, frustration and exhaustion causing her to drop one with a loud thud. Alex quietly instructs her on proper placement, his calmness in contrast to her chaos sharpening the lesson. Hours pass as Fiona continues, and the physical effort mirrors the emotional collapse she experiences inside. Becca and Tess do not return, their absence a glaring confirmation of their earlier betrayals. Alex finally nods, indicating the last box is in position, signaling the end of Fiona's solo labor. She collapses onto the concrete floor, breathing heavily, staring at Alex with a mix of anger and despair. Alex retrieves the keys, locks the unit, and hands back the envelope containing the storage key for her friends. Fiona realizes that even the key cannot undo the lesson. Her reliance on friends was misplaced. The van drives away with all the boxes staged for removal, leaving Fiona alone, exhausted and defeated. Alex watches silently, knowing the lesson has been delivered, precise and complete. Fiona looks around the empty storage, understanding that she must take full responsibility for the mess she created. The echoes of abandonment linger as she accepts the consequences of trusting poorly and defending the wrong people. Alex does not gloat. He simply allows the aftermath to unfold naturally, leaving Fiona to confront the truth. By the end of the day, the storage is empty, the van departs, and the bonds Fiona thought unbreakable have vanished. She is left with exhaustion, regret, and the undeniable reality that her ride-or-die friends were never reliable. Fiona stands on the sidewalk, watching the last boxes disappear into the van, feeling utterly abandoned. Her friends are gone, leaving her to handle the aftermath alone, the illusion of loyalty shattered completely. She glances at the empty apartment behind her, once a home filled with laughter and shared memories. Now it feels foreign, stripped of comfort and warmth, reduced to walls and silence she cannot enter. Arlene mutters complaints about bad decisions, but even her mother cannot undo what has been done. Fiona realizes the scale of her isolation, the absence of anyone willing to help or share responsibility. She tries calling Becca and Tess again, but their phones go unanswered, their excuses already in place. The storage unit, now emptied, holds no comfort, only a record of her dependence on unreliable friends. Alex has returned the envelope with the storage key, but it holds no value to her now. Half of her possessions are left behind, too cumbersome to move, abandoned on the street outside the van. She picks up a small box, staring at its contents, realizing nothing can replace what she has lost. Her hands tremble, not from cold but from the weight of betrayal, fatigue, and disbelief. Every item left behind reminds her of choices made for convenience, rather than foresight or caution. She attempts to reorganize the few remaining items, but the scale of the task overwhelms her completely. Arlene sighs, stepping back, recognizing the lesson is harsh but necessary, her words no longer useful. Fiona feels the emptiness not only around her, but inside herself, the absence of trust gnawing quietly. She recalls the promises of Becca and Tess, now hollow echoes of friendship that never truly existed. Her heart pounds as she faces the reality. She has lost her home, her belongings, and her ride or die. Alex, meanwhile, walks back to his apartment, each step deliberate, free from chaos and unnecessary conflict. He enters his space, where everything is orderly, predictable, and exactly as he left it, untouched. The silence in his apartment is a stark contrast to the turmoil Fiona endures outside, and he breathes easily. He reviews the situation briefly, satisfied that boundaries were restored and responsibility enforced logically. Fiona collapses on the curb, exhausted, staring at the scattered boxes as if they could offer consolation. The street around her is indifferent, carrying on as normal while her life feels paused and fractured. She attempts to gather the remaining items, but fatigue forces her to leave much behind, an incomplete recovery. Alex looks out from his window briefly, seeing the world continue beyond his walls, calm and untroubled. Fiona struggles, realizing the lessons of trust, accountability, and loyalty have come at a steep personal cost. She wipes her face, exhausted and demoralized, seeing clearly for the first time how misplaced her priorities were. Half her possessions gone, her support network vanished, she faces the stark reality of isolation she created. Alex closes the door behind him, the apartment now a sanctuary, every item in its proper place and under his control. Fiona, left on the street with scattered belongings, begins to accept the consequences of defending the wrong people. The day ends with silence in Alex's apartment and chaos fatting behind Fiona, a total reversal of fortune. Alex sips coffee in his orderly kitchen, reflecting calmly, while Fiona contemplates loss, betrayal, and hard-earned lessons. She is alone, the friends she trusted gone, her possessions diminished, and the home she called hers unreachable. The finality of the situation presses down, leaving Fiona to reckon with choices that cannot be undone. Alex remains untouched by the storm, his world restored, quiet, and entirely his own, a sanctuary reclaimed. Alex locks the door behind him, the apartment finally silent and entirely under his control. He walks through each room, noting the order, the calm, and the absence of chaos that once haunted him. Every item is in its proper place, untouched, a reflection of his careful planning and patience. He pours a cup of coffee, savoring the quiet, the peace that comes from boundaries respected. Fiona is gone, her friends gone, and the home she once called hers reduced to memories and scattered boxes. Alex feels a weight lift from his shoulders, the tension of months finally released in one decisive act. He sits at the table, glances out the window, and breathes deeply, appreciating the solitude he fought to reclaim. No calls, no interruptions, no intrusions, just the calm hum of life on his terms. Fiona faces the consequences of choices made in defense of unreliable friends, alone in the aftermath. Alex allows himself a small, satisfied smile, knowing control, respect, and order have returned to his world. The apartment is clean, the schedule uninterrupted, and his peace restored, complete and unshakable. In the quiet, he feels free, undisturbed, and fully himself, at last living in a home that belongs to him. The chapter closes with clarity, boundaries preserved, trust misplaced exposed, and a life reclaimed. Alex sips his coffee, alone but content, as the city outside moves on, indifferent to past chaos. His world is calm, orderly, and entirely his, a sanctuary he will never surrender again.